like Olivia said, we just heard about doing your thing God's way. And the rule of life is literally meant for you to be able to do your thing God's way. Um, First, we want to talk about what the rule of life is. So the backstory about it, I've read this book called God in My Everything, and it's written by a Japanese pastor named Ken Shigematsu. And so his backstory is that he used to work for Sony in Japan. And he would tell stories about how, in his book, he would tell stories about how some of the workers there would work like 20-hour shifts, you know? And so they would like leave, get on a train to go home. It'd be like an hour-long drive home. So they're sleeping on the train. They would get home, shower, eat, and I guess do whatever else they can do in a short period of time, ride back on the train for an hour, sleeping, and then get back to work. So there was like literally like no time to actually fully rest and sleep, you know? So he didn't actually work like that kind of shift, but his shifts were still pretty similar. And so he was just, his life was all work. And he was like stressed out. Well, he met another guy. I don't think this guy was working with Sony, but he was still like in Japan and he still was pretty successful with what he was doing, but he was just a lot happier. And he went and asked that guy, who's like, hey, what are you doing that's different from me? You know? And then so this guy told him about the rule of life and that he learned from monks. And basically what it does is it's a flexible schedule of the things that you value most. That it's meant to be flexible because like if you can't get to it every week, you're not going to like quit on it, you know what I'm saying? But you'll always get back to it. So why should we do the rule of life? Well, first of all, it is to actually value the things you say you value. So there's a lot of times when we might be like, you know, I really value, say, being fit and healthy, but we don't actually like do the steps to like go work out or eat healthy foods and things like that, you know? Or I really value like drawing closer to the Lord, but you don't really do the steps to like, I don't know, spend time with God or do the spiritual disciplines. Or I really value like spending time with my family or whatever, my friends or doing whatever, but you don't take the time to call them or set up time to spend time with them, you know? So what the rule of life does is it allows you to make a schedule to where you actually do those steps throughout your week, you know? The second thing is sometimes we claim like we don't have time to do the things that we value, and that probably is true for a lot of people. But what I find with the rule of life is it's kind of like I don't know if y'all have heard of Marie Kondo and her tidying up, how you organize your house and all that stuff. You can kind of see where everything is and keep everything organized. Well, the rule of life, in a sense, is the same way. It's like it organizes your time. So you can look at your schedule and be like, oh, I actually do have some time right here that I can put this. I can start doing this thing that I want to do into this slot. So it's really helpful for organizing your time. And then the other thing is sometimes we don't know what we actually value. So when we sit in there putting together our rule of life, you might be like, man, I thought I really valued reading a lot of books, but as I'm putting this together, I really don't want to put this into my schedule. And you realize, oh, maybe I don't value it as much as I thought I did, which is okay. Or it could be like, oh, maybe I don't value it as much as I thought I did, but I want to value it more. So you start putting it into your schedule to do anyway, and you start developing a value for it. The next reason why why it's good to have a rule of life is to become the person that you hope to be. And I think that almost goes without saying, like if you have a value, say, I'm going back to working out just because I used to be a personal trainer. So we're going to stick with that analogy. So if you want to become the person who's fit and healthy, you have to put forth the effort, right? Getting fit and healthy doesn't happen through spontaneity or a lack of effort. You got to follow a routine of growth to reach your fitness goals. But this is true for like really any type of goal in life, right? Like if you're trying to like learn another language or learn an instrument, I don't know, just whatever. So you have to put forth the effort to actually achieve those goals. So the rule of life will help you become the person that you hope to become. Also, it's good for developing character values. So you won't be able to change your vices or your bad habits without practice. That's just the truth behind it. Like you might be like, man, I really wish that I would stop, I don't know, staying up late watching YouTube like I used to do, you know, and still sometimes we'll fall into that, but it's not as bad as it used to be. As you take steps to stop that, the rule of life will help you to get a handle of those things so you can move away from that. Also the opposite end, if it's not pulling things out of your life, but it's actually setting aside time for like disciplines and prayer and Bible reading and stuff like that. And then finally, it's just to do your things God's way. So I don't have to say much more about that. But if you're following everything else, then you will be able to do your thing God's way. So I'm going to give y'all a few examples here. Firstly, to show you what the rule of life is essentially you're listing out your values. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Once, give me a second. Let's see. Now share screen. Okay. So right here we have the summer rule of life for a man named Suns Out, Guns Out, because he's really into the beach and surfing and all that stuff. He's like a California type guy. Anyway, so when you look at your rule of life, you're going to have something called trellis items. So it's the categories that you're going to look for your values in. And there's 12 categories. And it goes from the most foundational to the top. So I have it in reverse order here, but the most foundational, since it's like a Christian thing, is you start with, Sabbath, prayer, Bible, then friendship, sexuality, family, body, play, money, work, justice, and witness. And what you do is you go to each of those categories and you decide how much you value those categories and what you want to do within those categories. So here's a rough schedule of Suns Out, Guns Out schedule, his life that he wants to do. So under prayer and Bible, he wants to pray 7 times a day, and he wants to read the Bible 5 times. And he wants to try for a chapter each time he reads the Bible. For his family and friendship and sexuality, he wants to cook and clean for his wife twice a week. He wants to get together with the boys once every 2 weeks, and he wants to call mom and dad 1 time a week. For his body and play, he wants to work out 5 times. He wants to practice his Frisbee throws because he's into Frisbee. He wants to go surfing 1 to 2 times every 2 weeks. For his money, he wants to keep up with his budget. At the end of each week, he wants to give tithe once a week, give to something once a month to kind of cultivate a heart of generosity. And his work, justice, and witness. So his job is a little interesting. He goes into work 3 days a week and he works remotely twice a week. I kind of wanted to have a little variety here. So he'll work on his work tasks 5 days a week and home tasks 3 to 4 times a week, volunteer at church. He has to invite Donnie to church because Donnie doesn't know Jesus, He wants to have conversations with Arnold because the bros got to know, things like that, And for Sabbath, he wants to chillax after church and fast a meal 1 time every other week. So this is kind of like he went into each category and he picked out what his values were within them and what he was willing to commit to them. So that's kind of what the rough schedule is about. And what I have here is I'm going to show you a schedule, an actual like weekly schedule that you can put together. And right here, what I do is for each of my categories, I'll color code them. So when you look at your schedule, you can be like, oh, I see a lot of purple. This is a lot of like God time stuff. Or I see a lot of red. There's a lot of like relational stuff that I want to work on. And yellow is like hobbies, kind of leisure, self-training. Ministry in green, work in blue, and homework in orange. You can do whatever color code you want for that, but I'll show you that in a little bit. Before I do that, though, I want to show you a few little rough schedules that were actually in the book, the Rule of Life book, because that's the next thing you want to do. Once you pick out your trellis items, you want to put together either a loose or a tight schedule. And here's some examples of what the schedules are. This is Ken's Rule of Life right here. He's the author. So basically, his is kind of like uncategorized. He just kind of threw together like all the things he wants to do in his life. Like he wants to take a 24-hour Sabbath once a week. He wants to begin each day with scripture and prayer. He wants to run 2 to 3 times a week and swim 2 times a week. He wants to be home at 5:15. He wants to host people from different backgrounds, things like that. Take a yearly summer vacation with his family. So he just kind of wrote everything down. If that's the way your brain works, this is probably a good example. You just throw everything down onto a sheet. You could just read it whenever you want to read it. Maybe it's once a week or whatever. Another example would be like Stephen's Rule of Life. He's in his 30s, he's married, and he's an NGO worker in Brazil. So what he did was in his category, in his Rule of Life, is he took the categories and just put them all on the paper. And then he put everything he wanted to do within each category. So spiritual disciplines like doing morning devotional over breakfast, he has a category for mind and focus. That's something a little different, email and internet in the afternoon and evening only. His marriage, he wants to serve his wife daily. She's apparently a Brazilian born, so he helps her with English and goes on a date with her, things like that, invest in the kids, stuff like that. So he breaks down from the categories. Another example would be Brittany's rule of life. She's a graduate student in her 20s. So these are real people. They're just put into the book. Her categories are based on like how often she wants to do stuff. So she has her daily stuff, her weekly stuff, and her biweekly and monthly basis, which to me, this is more organized. I think I'd probably go this route, to be honest. Like you can just read your daily stuff every day, obviously, to see what you want to do. Okay, I want to spend time with God through Bible study, prayer and worship. I want to focus on eating healthy. That's her daily things. Her weekly things would be like participating in church, spending quality time with her boyfriend, exercising 3 to 4 times a week. And then like biweekly and monthly is like tithing, connecting with her friends and her parents and things like that. So that's another way you can do it. And finally, the last example I have from the book is kind of a mixture of both. This is from a woman named Michelle who's married with a child and is a pastor. And on her left-hand column, she has her daily, weekly, monthly categories. And on the top, she has the trellis items. This way you can look at it all at once. And for your, like every day, you'd probably look at your daily stuff, weekly, blah, blah, blah. You kind of get the idea at this point. So, and you can go as like detailed as you want to go or as general as you want to go. Like for instance, she's pretty detailed. If you look at her daily physicals, she's like brush twice a day, floss once a day. I think that's just stuff that we kind of like, you just kind of know, but she goes really in detail, like 5 servings of veggies, 24 grams of fiber. But you can also be very general. So you don't have to go into super details like that, but you can. And then finally, the last thing I want to show y'all is if I can get under this thing. There we go. So going back to Mr. Sun's Out, Guns Out. This is something that I do that I've gotten from Olivia and I. We had to do like timesheets for our internship in Chi Alpha. So this is one of the things we set up was a schedule. And to me, this works pretty well. Like every Sunday before the week begins, I will like put together my schedule for the week. So what Suns Out, Guns Out did, and this is kind of like the way that I do too, is first he put all the things that he can't change, right? He can't change his work. So he has to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to 3. So I have that set up in blue. His Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 10 to 3. And then his Tuesday and Thursday, he works from home from 10 to 12. Then he has a little break and then he does 2 to 4. So he put all his work stuff into there. On Mondays, his schedules are pretty similar. He wakes up, he has time with God, does his breakfast, goes to work. Then he goes gym time, bro, because he likes to go to the gym, does his dinner, does his Frisbee practice. And that's what he does all 3 of those days. And on Tuesday and Thursday, he cleans the kitchen for his wife. He takes a nap because the bro needs his Z's. That's true. Then he cooks dinner at 5 and he calls his mom and dad at 7. So 4 to 4:30, I have for Tuesday and Thursday that he wants to change the oil in his car. Obviously, he won't do that both days. So like in your schedule, what you can do is like, oh, I have a time frame, a free time point on my Tuesdays and Thursdays for like an hour. And one of those times I can do my oil change, So what you can do is just throw it in for both those days. And whatever day you do it, the other day is just a free time, right? So that's kind of how the rule of life works. You just, if you do something, you end up freeing up another point of time. It just becomes a block that you can do whatever you want in it. And obviously his weekends are going to be different. So for his weekends, after time with God on Saturday, he goes surfing. Then he has lunch with his friends. Then he does, well, this weekend in particular, he's going to do the homeless ministry with his church. Then he's going to have a date night with his wife, and then he's going to work on his budget. And then on Sunday, church, then lunch with his wife's family, and then he does Frisbee on Sunday. That's when he plays his ultimate Frisbee games, which I'll only put an hour, but it's probably going to be a few hours, considering an ultimate Frisbee game. Anyway, so when you look at your schedule, though, this is what I like about the rule of life, is you see everything you have and what kind of time you have available, and you can put in what you want to fill those times with. And all your white blocks are going to be your free time, and you can either leave them white and just do whatever you want during those times. Or if you can be like, oh, I really want to start working on learning this other language, you know? So in this block, I'm going to put in maybe like some yellow segments. And then you can put like, oh, learn another language. Or if you don't know what you want to do, like say you have like times for your hobbies or something, but you don't really know what you want to do. Like I have a separate document where I have the categories and I put down everything I want to do, just that I value. Like if I want to read books, or I want to go practice like archery, or I want to write my book, or things like that. But during the week, I might not know what I want to do in that block. You can just color code it and not put anything in it. And so when it comes to that point, you can be like, oh, I set this aside for hobbies, so I'll just can do whatever I want in this time frame. So yeah, it's basically what the rule of life is. To me, this has really like helped me a lot. Well, let me stop sharing so we can get back to normal. Okay. It's really helped me a lot because before I did a rule of life, I just really struggled with spending devotional time with God, and with making sure I was praying. But even beyond that, just like doing the things that I want to practice so I can become what I want to be, you know? Because for me, especially, like I can be lazy whenever I have free time. So the rule of life, for some people, it could end up being like stressful, but it's not meant to be stressful. It's meant to be flexible, you know? So if putting together that schedule that I just showed you with the color coding and all, if that's like for you, that's like, oh, this is too stressful, then I would just say pick one of the more looser ones that's from the book, you know, and just like look at it and be like, I'm going to make sure I put time toward this.